Geezers, Phoenix Force is the new Battle Pass card. This is one I cannot wait to get my hands on. I've built 3 extraordinary decks, one of which I'm going to be going from rank 70 to rank 100 on the first day of the season, at least I hope I will. And we're going to be showing off the key synergies, the cards to avoid with Phoenix Force, and overall assess how good is this card. It's 5 energy, 6 stats, and on reveal, it's going to revive one of your destroyed cards and merge with it. That card can move each turn. So if we play Phoenix Force on turn 5, it's going to merge with one of our destroyed cards, ideally something like Human Torch or Multiple Man. We can then move it once on turn number 6. Happy days. We can compare Phoenix Force to a card like Vision quite clearly because it's a 5 energy card also which can move once. However, Phoenix Force is 1 stat less than Vision. But, of course, with those potential synergies with Human Torch and Multiple Man, this card can play for way more points than Vision. And Vision, by the way, is a really, really good card. So this is a card I'm incredibly excited for. Lots of synergies required, of course, in order to be getting it to playing for more points than Vision, but wow, the potential of this card is insane. There's a few things to unpack. Ghost Rider is one card I wanted to compare Phoenix Force to. The reason for that is it says revive one of your destroyed cards, and in a similar way, Ghost Rider is also bringing back a little bit of a discrepancy with the text because they probably should both say resurrect, but bring back one of your discarded cards to this location. Some of you would want to know what happens if I've got 2 cards that I've destroyed with Phoenix Force. Well, it's just going to bring back a random one in the exact same way Ghost Rider would do with discarded cards. And the other key thing with Phoenix Force is the word merge, because Phoenix Force says merge with a card, and that's going to work in the same way as Hulkbuster. And that's really interesting because of the synergies Hulkbuster has. My favorite bit of synergy is with Iron Fist, and therefore Phoenix Force is going to work the same way. A lot of you will know I love playing a Iron Fist. Then I play my Hulkbuster onto the Multiple Man. The Multiple Man is then going to move once it's already been merged with Hulkbuster, and you get those 7 stats total on Multiple Man moving across. Well, that's going to work the same way with Phoenix Force. So if we were to play a Iron Fist on turn number 4, Phoenix Force on turn number 5. Let's say our Phoenix Force merges with our Human Torch. We're going to have an 8 power Human Torch, which then gets moved by Iron Fist to give us a 16 power Human Torch. And then we can finally move that Phoenix Force again on turn 6 for a 32 point Human Torch. So lots of really exciting synergies with Phoenix Force because of that merge factor as well. We're going to talk about the key destroy cards because of course you're going to need to be playing some of these in order to be getting your Phoenix Force working. I would say the average deck, you're probably looking at playing Carnage and one other destroy card. Carnage you're pretty much always going to want to play. It's the best destroy card pretty much because of how cheap it is. You can combo it with a bunch of other cards, therefore just a solid card. Deathlock, probably the worst of the bunch. There is one deck where I'm playing Deathlock where it's like an all-in destroy deck. Venom, a very good option in particular if you're trying to buff that card up first, then eat it. But again, you probably only want to be eating one card most of the time in these Phoenix Force decks. And finally, Killmonger, one I think pretty easy to underestimate. However, Killmonger is just a great card in its own right, being able to deal with your opponent's Nebula, Sunspot, all these kind of pesky cards. But also you could perhaps destroy your own Human Torch with Killmonger and then resurrect it a little bit later on. So probably the average Phoenix Force deck, I would say, is going to be playing Carnage and Venom, but you also could try Killmonger as well. Some cards to avoid with Phoenix Force, which are traditionally good in destroy decks, are cards like the Hood and Bucky. Because of the fact that Phoenix Force is going to be resurrecting a random destroyed card, you don't want to be resurrecting a -3 or just a 1 point card, I would wager. Also, cards which are not going to be resurrected by Phoenix Force, I believe, are Deadpool and Wolverine. Unfortunately, there's just no synergy here. These are going to be working in similar ways to how Swarm works with Ghost Rider. When you discard Swarm, even though it goes into your graveyard, you then get 2 copies in your hand, and Ghost Rider cannot hit it. Deadpool and Wolverine regenerate, they come back into your hand or the board, and therefore they cannot be resurrected. So, Human Torch is one of the key cards to resurrect. I think it's pretty much Human Torch and Multiple Man are the 2 big juicer cards, which I'm really excited for. Now, With a Human Torch, what you're going to be most likely looking to do is playing an Arnim Zola on turn number 6. So let's say you get that 32-point or 16-point Phoenix Force. You can then move it to a different location on turn 6, play your Arnim Zola into that location, and suddenly you have two 32-point Human Torches, and your opponent is not going to know what location those Human Torches are going to be in. So that's a very exciting one. But I am almost more excited for the Multiple Man, because Multiple Man not going to be susceptible to Killmonger. It's going to split your lanes a lot more. But instead of playing an Arnim Zola on turn 6, if you do some Multiple Man stuff, you're going to be wanting to play a Heimdall instead. So for example, you could play that Iron Fist on turn 4. Then you play your Phoenix Force on turn number 5, merging with a Multiple Man, which you previously destroyed. You're then going to have a 9-point Multiple Man, which moves with Iron Fist. You can then move it again on turn number 6 with the Phoenix Force, and then potentially play a Heimdall for just a whole bunch of Multiple Mans. Of course, if you can get a Hulkbuster through a Multiple Man earlier before you destroy it, that's potentially even more points. So Multiple Man on turn 2, Hulkbuster on turn number 3. Then on turn 4, something like a Venom and Iron Fist, or something like Carnage and Iron Fist. There's all sorts of wacky things you can do to get really, really big Multiple Men. Iron Fist, I've talked about a bunch. Really easy to underestimate how good this is with Phoenix Force. Ghost Spider, Doctor Strange, Cloak, all of these cards are going to be pretty good with Phoenix Force. I picked out Ghost Spider just because it's the new Battle Pass card. Doctor Strange is basically slightly worse than Ghost Spider. If you don't have Ghost Spider, Doctor Strange will do the job as well. The last card you played moves here. So you play your Phoenix Force on 5, and then on turn number 6, you might play your Ghost Spider as well as some other cards. Shuri. Oh my goodness, Shuri. Okay, Shuri is the money card with Phoenix Force. We've been talking about Iron Fist a little bit before, but it's even better to be playing Shuri before, because the way that the merge works is that Shuri is going to double after the merge has gone through. For example, let's say we have our Human Torch at 2 points. We destroyed it. We then play Shuri on turn number 4. We play our Phoenix Force on 5. Our 6-point Phoenix Force is going to merge with our Human Torch. So then we have an 8-point Human Torch, but then Shuri doubles it. So suddenly we have a 16-point Human Torch. Pretty saucy. So you can do the same thing with Iron Fist, and it's going to be the same amount of points, but the Shuri becomes even better when you're looking at moving a card like Multiple Man. You've got that Multiple Man merging with your Phoenix Force for 9 stats. Shuri doubles it, that's 18, and suddenly you've got 18-point Multiple Men all across the board. Just really, really cool things you can do with Shuri. And of course, you can play Shuri in other decks as well. You could put Red Skull and Nimrod in there. Both those cards performing very well at the moment on the ladder. So Shuri, a very interesting one indeed. Arnim Zola, as I talked about, I think is a money card here. Always good with Shuri, but just a way of getting even more cards across the board. Taskmaster, one that I've not really talked about at all yet, but of course if you've got a 32-point Human Torch, instead of playing that Zola to get 2 copies elsewhere, you could just play a Taskmaster to get another 32-point human, Taskmaster in this case. Heimdall, interesting with the Multiple Man, as I mentioned. America Chavez, I'm going to play in pretty much every deck with Phoenix Force. Of course, you guys know I'm a massive fanboy of this card, but I always just love Chavez in Shuri decks in general. And this deck is very important to have a curve. You want to be playing on turn 1 your Human Torch. You want to be playing Carnage or Multiple Man on turn number 2, something like that, right? So I think that America Chavez is pretty much a must-have. Not to play her, but for the consistency she gives you. Finally, I wanted to give a mention to the ramp cards as well. There's definitely some very interesting things you can do with Psylocke, Wave, and Electro. These are the 3 cards in Marvel Snap which let you play cards earlier. So you could play Phoenix Force on turn number 4 potentially. For example, you could go Human Torch on 1, Carnage on 2, and then Psylocke on turn number 3. Then you could play your Phoenix Force on turn 4, resurrecting your Human Torch, and you get an extra movement out of it. My concern with these is they're maybe a little bit too niche, but Electro is definitely a card which Phoenix Force could work in that style of ramp deck. Here's the first deck. This is the one I'm most excited for. Now, there's a few cards in here which you might not own. For example, Ghost Spider. As I mentioned, you can replace this very easily with something like Doctor Strange or Cloak. There's also an Iron Lad in here, which might not even prove to be that good, and it might just prove to be a Hulkbuster instead. So do not panic. If you don't have the Iron Lad, you can just play something a little bit different, like a Hulkbuster. Now, why Iron Lad? What's the point? Well, in this particular deck, Iron Lad, if it hits Human Torch, is pretty saucy. If you hit Multiple Man, you're happy. But you could also hit the Shuri or the Phoenix Force as well. There's just pretty interesting things which it can hit. Phoenix Force onto... Iron Lad onto Phoenix Force would work in a similar way to those ramp plays, where you just get that extra little bit of movement. And you imagine you play your Human Torch on 1, your Multiple Man on 2, and then you destroy it on 3, and then suddenly you resurrect your Multiple Man on turn number 4 with an Iron Lad. You're just going to have so many points. It's pretty insane. So the rest of the deck, what's it all about? Well, it's a movement deck in some regards, but really focusing on Phoenix Force. If you do miss Phoenix Force, this deck might struggle a little bit because the Shuri is a little bit awkward, but Hulkbuster does have some synergies potentially with Shuri as well, if you did want to go this route. This is the deck I'm most excited for. I think it's so saucy. So your main lines are either going for a Human Torch or going for a Multiple Man. If you go for the Human Torch, you're looking to Zola it on turn number 6. If you go for the Multiple Man, you're looking to play Heimdall on turn number 6. This deck looks so exciting. Your Venom could be replaced by Deathlock. Absolutely. I think Venom's just going to work out to be a few more points on average, although you're probably only looking to destroy 1 card with Venom. You also could consider playing Killmonger, but Killmonger a little bit awkward with that Iron Fist also being a resurrect target potentially. The next deck is a ramp deck. This one, if you have Spider-Ham and Jeff, those 2 cards can come in instead of Sunspot and Iceman. This is the standard looking ramp list where you might play Black Panther on turn number 5. Turn number 4. On turn 5, you might Arnim Zola your Black Panther, and then suddenly on turn 6, if you would wish, you can use your Phoenix Force to get another Black Panther, for example. It's not the most exciting, the most powerful combo, but it's something I've seen lots of people talking about. You also could try and play like Human Torch and Carnage in this deck as your low cost cards. I just think it's not going to happen often enough. You're not going to be drawing this package of cards often enough, and so it's not worth it. Overall, I think that Phoenix Force is not actually that good in ramp decks, but I know a lot of people are talking about it in ramp, and it could prove to be pretty interesting. I think the main problem with Phoenix Force is if you don't have that destroyed card when you play it, my understanding is that you won't be able to move it at all, and it's just going to be a 6-point card when you could be playing something like Devil Dino, which is often going to play for double that amount of points. Up next is the third and final take on a Phoenix Force deck, and I do have a couple different versions of this really, and it's a Destroy deck. I've been playing a lot of Destroy actually in the last few days. I did a YouTube live stream and I've been very impressed with it. It's actually a pretty solid list. The main line is to play Shuri on 4, Nimrod on 5, and then something like Zola or Destroyer on 6, or perhaps like a Venom and a Deathlock, or a Venom and a Carnage. Lots of different lines you can do with this one, and Phoenix Force just slots in as a different option to play on turn 5 if you don't draw that Nimrod. You could play Human Torch on 1, Carnage it on 2, and then resurrect it a little bit later on. So it's a pretty interesting approach. Iron Lad in here also could be replaced by a bunch of stuff. Any destroy card of your choice really. You just don't want to be playing like cards like Nova, Bucky, the Hood with the Phoenix Force, but Multiple Man, something else to just resurrect could be pretty nice. I did want to try like an Ebony Maw approach as well, where you could go Carnage Ebony Maw on turn 3 and then resurrect the Ebony Maw a little bit later with Phoenix Force, but it's just a little bit too niche because often you're going to play that Ebony Maw on turn number 3 and you won't have Carnage, and therefore you're not going to be able to destroy it because of the fact you can't play cards into the Ebony Maw. Another take on this one, which is very similar, is using, instead of the Destroyer and the Iron Lad, it uses Taskmaster and Red Skull. My concern with this particular build is maybe the amount of 5-cost cards are a little bit too high. There might be a few too many targets for your Shuri, but you can't really go wrong with a Red Skull getting Shuri'd and then Taskmastering it the following turn. So pretty excited to try out a bunch of different versions of this one. I think this one is the one that I'm most interested in, and overall the deck I'm most excited for without doubt is this one on screen. With the Iron Lad in particular, I think Iron Lad can just high roll so hard with this deck. I think we could probably achieve Human Torches at like 64 points. I do definitely want to give and will be giving Hulkbuster a try in this list as well. All the decks will be in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed my decks and guide on Phoenix Force. Overall, my excitement for this card is like a 9.5 out of 10. In terms of its competitiveness, I think it's going to be pretty good, but maybe not the best come the end of the season. I think it's probably going to be like an 8 out of 10 overall in terms of competitiveness, but it could prove to be higher. I think the Multiple Man and the Human Torch are the key to unlocking the power of this one. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you for some more Phoenix Force action very, very soon.